Hi, everyone. This is the Leadership at Heart podcast, and this is Heather Younger, your host. Employee experience is powered by emotions. Managers and or leaders within organizations get to choose which emotions they unleash from within the people they lead. Leaders, meaning supervisors or above in an organization, drive much of the positive or negative emotions by their actions or inactions, their words, or what they fail to say. When a manager chooses their words and their actions carefully, they exhibit great emotional intelligence. These managers are often thought of as leaders who care, or as I like to call them, leaders with heart. This special brand of leader drives engagement and loyalty simply by being themselves. Are these leaders perfect? Absolutely not. It is in their awareness and sharing of some of their imperfections that we realize their true brilliance. In this podcast, I ask you to see yourself in the stories my guests tell about times when they were not the best versions of themselves, but how they used their hearts to guide them to a deeper connection with their team and heightened leadership prowess. Before we move on and you hear the show today, I want to make a special request of you. I would like this podcast to remain successful and to increase the amount of listeners and people who are downloading it. And in order to do that, I need to get more reviews. So, for anybody who is a listener, and if you love the show, please go and do a 5-star rating and write a review anywhere you listen. And then screenshot that. If you screenshot that and you email me at heather@customerfanatics.com, heather@customerfanatics.com, then in the next show, I will give a kudos to you for doing so, because I actually am very appreciative of anybody who does write those reviews. And if you already have done so, thank you very much. Thank you for joining this show and enjoy this one. Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining the Leadership with Heart podcast. Today, I'm here talking to just you. And just recently, I saw something on LinkedIn. It was a friend of mine who posted something, and they tagged me as basically an amazing leader, and it was a really touching post. But it made me think of another post that an article I'd written, and I didn't realize how long ago it was till I searched for it on LinkedIn. It was in 2014, and it was why it's okay to love your employees. And I know this is a really hard conversation to have, and even a tough one to broach, because most people really move away from or scared away from this idea of love in the workplace. And I don't mean love like romantic love. Right? I mean deep, caring love. So while I was working at a position, the last position I worked at before I decided to go on my own with Customer Fanatics, I had a manager who brought me in, and he had a certain way about him. But one day, he could see that I was reaching a heightened level of frustration with some decisions that were being made that I felt were completely ignoring the value that I brought to the organization. And he could have let me just sit and baste in that pity for a little bit. And he didn't. He came down without an appointment to my office, kind of looked at me in my eyes and got to see how I was doing, sat down in the chair and started to talk to me and said, I know this is frustrating, and we hired you for a reason. You're here to do what you do best, and we want you to do it well. I know this is all frustrating with what's happening, but please do stick with it, because we want you to do what you do best. And then he just gave me this smile. I've got to tell you, at that moment, I loved that guy. Just recently, I hadn't seen him. He left that position because he felt like a lot of the decisions that were being made didn't align with who he was as a leader, which I greatly respected, but boy, did it hurt, because he was such a wonderful manager. And just recently, my heart was just really, really broken for him, because his son, who was just in his 20s, passed away in his sleep. And I've heard about it just through someone who knows that I really cared about him at that place, and it just through the grapevine. And I quickly requested the information to make sure I could get to his son's funeral. And I showed up there, and I just remember seeing him And all of those feelings of being taken care of and cared for came back to me. And I wanted to do the same for him. I wanted to be there for him. And I remember when we locked eyes, he looked at me and it was like, yes, thank you. And I looked at him and it was like, yes, thank you. So here's the thing to remember when we think about that leader with heart. We know that leader with heart, right? They're the person who makes us feel important, who takes the time to be with us where we're at right then in that moment. They don't delay. They don't act political. They don't put words up and airs up. They are human. They are real. And so in that moment where he came down to me and he was there for me, I just wanted to be there for him. And of course, these are two different scenarios, really horrific thing in his situation. But it was him being there for me when I was down and feeling kind of, that made me want to go to the ends of the earth for him while he was there, after he left, and in this situation where I know he needed as many friends as possible to envelope him with love. So my message for you today, as the host for the Leadership with Heart podcast and soon to be a book based upon this show, is that don't shy away from being that leader who loves your people. It is through that love that you will reap much larger dividends than you would if you focused first on profits, you focused first on projects, you focused on basically moving up in the business and trying to add more accolades and awards to what it is you're doing. Your greatest reward will be the look of inside the eyes of the people as they look at you with admiration, and as they care for you, and as they go over and above for you in every initiative that you might put in front of them. They will run that race with you, right beside you, and maybe even front, to make sure that you're winning. So be that leader with heart. Thank you so much for joining me on this very short show, but I hope it delivered a great boost for you today. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. You can grab the show notes by visiting customerfanatics.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter.